There we are, Wednesday, April 22nd, 2026 here in House Transportation. And we are sort of picking up on one of the subjects we hit on yesterday, talk a little bit about revenues, fees, but a little bit more in the inner workings of what fees are out there, how fees get reviewed, where revenue comes from in the state in terms of, or in the transportation budget, and sort of background, an area that I don't think we've really spent any time on in the committee. So we're trying to look for a little bit of kind of what goes on behind the scenes and how does it work. And we have Candace is back with us, so CFO of the agency and a return witness of multiple times. So good morning and thank you for coming in. And I'm hoping you can kind of, it shouldn't be hard to pretend like I don't know anything. So start with that and help walk me through some of this.
Thank you. Thank you for the intro, Claire, and thanks for having me here at committee. So I kind of invited myself here. Thank you. I saw that you were talking about fees, and Renee and I had worked on a fee report that we submitted to the legislature back in December. Just to remind the committee, if you're familiar with the fee report, it's on a 3-year cycle. So AOT's time to report was this past December. The last time we had reported was 3 years before, and then 3 years before that. So the last time it was actually compiled by us and sent to the Department of Finance and Management. This is the first time per session law, my bad, that the agencies and departments are taking control of their own fee report. So because it was the first time that the Agency of Transportation was submitting this report, and also since Renee and I are relatively new in our roles, we level set, we looked at what had been submitted to Finance and Management before, but we took a much broader approach than before, also because session law expanded the definition of what the report included. So while this is known as the fee report, session law said, don't only include fees, also talk about business licenses, non-business licenses, and fines and penalties. And I just give you this context to let you know that Renee and I spent probably 5 months working on this report, and really dug in. We have reported here on some classifications that did not make prior iterations of the report, like international registration plan fees and trip permits, fees supporting the transportation board levied on motor vehicle dealers and manufacturers, the transportation impact fee, and the annual emissions fee. So we love what's in here. I am sharing my screen. This is a much larger report than we're currently seeing. If I zoom out for a second, I'm obviously not going to go through this with you at this zoomed out level, but this is the report and it's many pages here. And just for
Those are all fees.
these are all transportation fees, yes. So I'm gonna go back to the beginning. Go ahead, Sheriff. Sorry.
I'm sorry. So those are all at some point, some coded fee in your system that you build or created for some reason, either billing someone or having been charged to pay a vendor or an employee or a Vermonter. I mean, they're talking what kind of different categories?
Yes. So every row here represents a separate fee as defined there, business license, non-business license, or fine and penalty set in statute. So we have the statutory reference here. Every time a different number existed in statute, we created a new row. And for ease of talking about this, we have numbers here on the left-hand side in case we want to ask about specific line items. But the first couple of columns here, we have the fee name in statute, a description. The account number is really what drives the vision revenue. What we see here is we could have one account number in vision associated with multiple rows. So we provided this PDF to JFO in an Excel document, obviously, to help with their analysis. And I don't think you can, no, you're still seeing the PDF. So just give me a second. I'm gonna share the Excel with you. Give me a second. Okay. So this is the Excel, a little bit easier to manipulate, has multiple tabs. This is also a format that was prescribed by JFO, so we worked with them on this report. But this is what we see in Vision. So for example, we'll have one account called commercial driver, account 405, 520, but that one account has many rows in the other report. For example, that account has skill tests, endorsement tests, a 4-year license, a 2-year license, permits, and duplicates. So in order to fill out the information on the other PDF we were looking at, we had to go to VT Trips. VT Trips has the information by statute. But of course, Vision is our source of record. So in order to try to estimate how much is for a 2-year license versus a 4-year license versus a permit, we had to look at the percentage in VT Trips and apply it to Vision revenue. This is something that we caveated with JFO in the fall, and I just think that it's important to know that VT Trips gets very close to Vision actuals, but there's an accrual issue between VT Trips and Vision. So we have presented both VT Trips information and Vision data, and then calculated an amount to get at the individual rows. Yeah.
Yeah, what's the difference between this and the times when we've done a fee bill?
A fee bill,
Like when
yeah.
you've raised motor vehicle fees.
yes, so a fee bill typically is what was done maybe back in 2023 when we increased all DMV fees
Right.
by 20%.
Yeah.
So there could be a fee bill any year. It's just a different bill number that's entered
Just
into the
it says
system.
different things, maybe. I mean, like, this is so comprehensive.
Right, the report is just a reporting function that the executive branch is, providing to the
Uh-huh.
legislative branch. As part of the fee report, there are different requirements. So one of the columns is what would the fee be now if it were adjusted for inflation? And JFO sets the inflationary factor. We can look at this in the Excel, that's fine. Okay. So
And then
one,
it's on here.
Oh, there's a column, if fee adjusted for
Yeah.
inflation.
yes. So
Way
JFO,
over on the right.
yes. JFO uses two inflators. Give me 1 second. What does PCE stand for?
Only on an annual basis or back against the last time it was raised?
The last time it was raised.
Okay.
So we also have a
It's a
column.
3-year inflation adjustment. For 2 years.
Well, for example, this first one for IFTA, the last time it was changed was 1997. Of course, IFTA is a little bit different. We don't have 100% control over that. But this inflator is looking back
All
to
the way.
1997. We have another tab here called the JFO calculator, and it's giving us the percentages and looking at the last year it was changed. Yeah.
So these don't automatically change every year, or
No,
you would have to look at each one separately. If you,
Right.
if you were deciding, well, we need to raise some fees here and there,
right.
you would have to take something out of here and say, well, this one, based on this information, hasn't
Yes.
been raised since whatever, needs to get, I get it.
If we look at this statute for the knowledge test in 23 VSA 4108F, you will literally see the amount of that fee in statute, which is $39. And then Renee and I, did investigation to find out, okay, that was one of the fees that was last raised in 2023. And then using JFO's calculator, if statute was amended, it would today be either $41.14 or $40.94, based on what JFO has provided as an inflationary calculation.
So is there any discussion about need some of these fees up to inflationary?
The executive branch provides the fee report for you all to consider. Renee and I submitted this back on December 15th, to inspire discussion or whatever would be done for the legislative session.
Okay, well, it's good to have now.
Yes, sure.
Representative McCoy and then Representative Bell.
So I think back in 2023, Ways and Means just across the board increased 20% DMV fees. So would that encompass every single line item on this?
There are more than just the fees that were raised in 2023 in this report because we took a more comprehensive view to this report.
And how, if they weren't done through the Ways and Means fee schedule that they have, like it's supposed to be a rolling every 3 years, you look at all fees in every department in the state. If it wasn't done that way, would it be through the governor's proposed budget? Fee increase or no?
The governor's budget can include fee proposals, but I don't believe that the 27 budget included.
But could it be? I mean. could it
Yeah,
have prior?
theoretically, yes,
Okay.
and it has in prior years, I believe, maybe early. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was just wondering how other, like you, I noticed a lot of them say 2023.
Yes.
And then some don't, like 1997, and some. Okay. Thank you.
There's a column here, percent of fund based on total fund revenue.
Yes.
Is that total fund revenue of all fees or of the T fund?
So most of these fees are going into the T fund, but there are some that are going into other funds like the snowmobile special fund and the ATV special fund. So one of the caveats that we have in the memo on top of the fee report that was submitted is that we took as the denominator, the total receipts into whatever fund it is that fee is being deposited into. There are many more receipts than just DMV fees and other miscellaneous fees in the transportation fund. And that's why if you add up all of these percentages, it's not going to equal 100%. Right, because there's the gas tax and there's the purchase and use tax also going into the
Okay,
transportation.
so it's the percent of the total revenue.
Yeah.
Of it,
Into that fund code.
yeah. Yeah, fine.
Other funds, just, oops, let me enable editing so we can see the other funds here. Yep, we got revenue going to an environmental permit fund, motorboat, special defender, there's like snowmobiles. And fish and wildlife, building bright futures, all-terrain vehicles fund.
How many total approximately?
Total funds or?
Yeah, how many different funds do we put money into?
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
And
10 here.
if the Senate version of the T-bill had their way, there would be another one?
Yes. Another special fund.
Town highway or a town, something special municipal transportation.
They
Fund.
don't have that special fund being funded by a fee. It's a transfer from the pilot fund. So because it's a transfer, it wouldn't show up on the next version of the fee report.
We do not have a fee, but we have more funds.
Yes.
Fund is,
Yeah, and this is only transportation. So when other agencies and departments compile their versions of the fee report, AHS's fee report is also hundreds of lines, similar to this.
How many of these fees listed in there did you find were obsolete and hadn't been used in years?
Maybe I had difficulty tracking down maybe 10, but it's not that they haven't been used. I mean, they're still out there. I mean, you mean, there's no activity.
Yeah, I was wondering more like, is there stuff that could be,
There's like 10.
that's not that many. How many total are there? I didn't look at the full. Yeah, is there, how many rows are we looking at?
60?
160? 10's not very bad, not a whole lot.
It says 276.
Oh, hold on.
Thank you.
You're right. My bad, Representative, sorry. 276, that's a function of the last time that I looked at this being December 15th, my bad.
276 different lines of fees in transportation alone. Okay, and only 10 of them haven't been used recently.
I think a good place to start, if we were looking at fees that don't have activity, are those that don't have an account number.
Oh.
If they don't have an account number in Vision, that it's likely, and anything also that has 0 reported or N, not applicable. So we could see that all of these ones here at the bottom were probably the ones that I had most difficulty with.
Represent what?
Yeah, thank you for this, Candace,
Yeah.
and for calling our attention to it, because I guess we missed it in December. So 276 different fees going into the transportation fund. And you said that there are 10 funds that we then put money into. Some of that revenue coming from here and going into other funds, okay. And just a couple questions. I mean, you all are doing a fund review every 3 years. So that, I mean, I guess part of that is so that the legislature can review it and discuss whether it requires updating, fees require updating. And then also, so I'm assuming that's kind of one function of this, sounds like pretty comprehensive exercise that you did. And then the other one is, as the chair mentioned or questioned, you know, which funds, or there are some funds that have no activity. Is that something, seems like if you've got funds that aren't really being used anymore, it would make sense to delete them, just to simplify things a little bit. Is that something that you can go ahead and do on your own, or do you need legislative encouragement to do that?
You mean fees that don't have activity?
Excuse me, fees,
Yes,
yes. Yes. Or
No.
fees that go into the fund, right?
Right.
Yeah.
The answer is no, because it's in statute. It's still there if someone wanted something. So let's say someone wants a motor vehicle law book, which I assume there hasn't been activity in because it's online for free. But let's say someone wanted a printed version, you know, I suppose we would be obligated to charge for that printed version because the fee is specified in statute.
And for that particular example, because it's online, do you even have printed copies, or would that require you to go?
I'm going to defer to Renee Coda.
Yes, we purchase 750 a year. That's the minimum that we purchase. So yes, people have the ability to purchase one
Okay,
at the counters.
okay, thank you.
Lined right up. Representative Powers, go ahead, and then Representative Keiser, and then
I
Representative
was
Coda.
looking at, I guess it's 14 and 15, these are plaza signs. And is there a reason they're not totaled? No. So this is $175, I guess a business pays to have a sign that points to their business. You
Yes.
see these all over the place, but is there a reason there's no totals? Oh,
Yes, so
oh,
for,
you've added them all up there.
yeah, so for that group, because it's in Vision and not BT Trips, and it's actually the AOT Accounts Receivable Department that handles those revenues, the totals have to be for a group of rows.
All right, I see that.
So anytime that you see business directional signs or, you know, on a town highway, you can think of this fee in statute.
I'm thinking about the automation of this, so with all the, so if somebody comes to you with a request for something or other, you just tap it in a computer and up it comes, or is there a book that you have to go through? I'm just trying to figure out this, how sophisticated we are in billing.
Right, for DMVs in particular?
Sure, these, I just,
Yes, well, it is different for like the AOT accounts receivable team versus DMV, but let's start with DMV because that's where the lion's share are. So I'm once again gonna ask Renee to tell us how her staff keeps track of all of the fees and statute. Obviously, we have statute as the guiding light.
yes, right. I'm just curious if if it's a manual process, by which you do this, or is it all loaded into a computer where somebody taps in a code and it comes up with reinstatement of a 2-year such and such, I think.
So reinstatement.
Whatever it is, I'm just,
So most of our fees are in T-Tricks. So it's in the
Yeah.
computer system. But there are some fees that are manual, and so that they it's receivable. And so directly.
And I would say on the AOT side, all of our bills are manual. So it is like incumbent upon me and the staff to, when there's a statute change, update our invoices to make sure that we are reflecting legislative intent.
do you think there'd be any savings to automate?
I know that they're talking about the ERP, the enterprise resource project. And there may be some automation there. But I think on the AOT side, the accounts receivable process is as automated as we can be right now with the system we're on, which is actually a different financial system than Vision. It's called STARS. And our AR team really does have the process down to a science, but yeah.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if you're gonna have to defer to Renee on this one, but getting back to that, those motor vehicle books that were available for $30, if we wanted one, you ordered 750 of them. Are those part of the green books, just separating out the motor vehicle laws, or what book are we talking about?
I'm gonna defer to Renee, yeah.
I did.
So there were some motor vehicle books available for $30, and you said you ordered 750, which was the minimum. Are those part of the green books, the Vermont statutes annotated, that you just pulled out the motor vehicle section and put them in this book? Or is it the driver's manual that are
So
available?
those are the green books.
Okay, thank you.
I was looking at number 52, which is just pleasure vehicle registrations. And those were raised about 20% in 2023
Yes.
or 2024. They don't seem to be going up that much. In fact, between one year and another, they went down. Between 2025 actual. I'm not sure what these 2025 actual receipts in Vision, 2025 actual receipts in VT trips.
Yes, Vision is our source of truth. But we include VT trips in there just to show the accrual difference between the two systems, and also if VT trips is because it was a new system, there could be differences in the coding.
So can we, I mean, they have gone up. But have they gone up 20%? I mean, is there where's the check, like, or the number of vehicles that is there a way to look at that?
Yeah, I do know that our state policy director, Patrick Murphy, has been tracking EV registration. But on the 20% question specifically, Renee has compiled data on things that have changed over the past two or 3 years that may mean that we're not seeing the full 20% increase that was implemented in 2023.
So TVs don't have anything to do with it, because they pay registration normal. They also have an infrastructure fee, which is probably a different line, I would assume. In here,
Yes,
but yeah, I mean, if they were raised 19 something, 20%. You don't really see it, you know. It's not obvious, I guess.
I would agree. I would
You
encourage,
think you just see a bump 1 year. But you don't. Or with over 2 years, because you can have that choice of 2 years.
it's a lot of data. An analyst could spend months
Yeah,
interpreting the figures here. I would agree with you, Representative. I would say the JFO could also do an analysis for you, yes, if you're interested.
Certainly sitting through, but sorry.
No,
There was other questions there that I was digging through that I'm started getting lost in that as well, in the amount of different spots. Analysis wise, and maybe I missed part of the conversation, I'm sure there is some level of, here's the big ones and here's where we're at, which is something that we had talked about for today, but
yes, Renee is.
are there other parts that you wanted to point out or highlight on here?
Yes, I just want to point out that a part of the template here is that we need to compare fees to similar jurisdictions. So Renee and I did spend a good deal of time looking at fees in Colorado, Wyoming, and New Hampshire. And there are links here, you know, to every fee that we found in those similar areas with demographics and geography. So in case we're interested, but we'll stop sharing now.
You did that analysis comparing other states.
Yes.
Did you factor in tolls or other means of revenue that they have to fund their transportation system? Because I think in a
No.
role.
No.
That would be apples to apples. So
We did not attempt to look at the systems in those other states. We
Yeah.
just did an analysis of, okay, does this state that has a similar geography or demographics have a 2-year license? Do they have a 4-year license? What is the fee? And here's the link.
yeah. I appreciate that, but in my mind, it doesn't really show the whole picture. Because if they're generating $100 million tolls, they're like, they could charge that much less, so.
Absolutely.
Representative Case?
Well, those 3 states were all their fees a little more than us?
No, I'd say
Well-
it varies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Representative McCoy?
So anecdotally, I thought we heard that there are less registrations. People are not renewing vehicles on a yearly or every 2-year basis. And that could be even though the cost increasing. Maybe that's the reason why. Can't afford it, so they're not, and I don't think they're getting picked up all that. I mean, they'd have to be stopped for a traffic violation or license and registration in order to see it, because we wanted the sticker on the bottom of the car either, or use that gun to, you know, do the windshield thing. I don't know.
It's a good trend question.
Right. And I don't know if we know that. Like, I'm sure you probably could with data, like, you know, 200,000 were registered in 2023, but only 180,000 in 2024. Like,
Renee has compiled some trends to
Okay.
share with you all. I would say that JFO can also compile trends because we haven't reviewed this information with them. I just want to caveat that. But okay, I'm gonna.
Not quite, you know, go quite,
Stay.
yeah, yes, Representative White had her hand up too, so
Yeah.
almost, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thank you, Candace. So just a lot of information here. Obviously, you all spent a lot of time on it. Do you have preliminary recommendations that you wanted to share with us? I mean, again, knowing that last time
Exactly the question.
fees were increased was 2023, knowing financial situation of the agency. Any thoughts on we should be looking at a 5%, a 10% increase, or is my question a little premature?
No, it's not premature. I'd say that the governor's recommended budget didn't include any fees. But it did include that change to the purchase and use percentage, like in out years, so that we could have a long-term, change to our transportation funding issue. So I'd stick behind that. But there, the information in the report is certainly very useful for you guys.
In very much along the directions of Representative White, going to, I think you were saying about 5 months worth of time on working on the project. When you have to do it again, is there now a kind of a basis that it won't take as long, or what's the thought?
Yeah.
there? What's it gonna take to
The,
review it again?
4.5 months.
the template has been built out over time. I remember the first time I worked on this, because I used to be with finance and management in a previous role, back in 2018. The template was a little smaller. Now it's bigger. And because we have done this year, it will be easier in future years.
When you did the analysis and compared to other states, were there, not just on the line of, but in addition to increases, were there other fees or approaches or structures that stood out, or that were maybe you noted at all that maybe that we aren't looking at that other states have, or that perhaps you were surprised that that state relied on something much more than we do? Is there some things that you've presented and or discussed in any kind of the senior review meetings, that what you found out on some of these other options?
I'd say nothing that stands out, Representative, because the conversation was focused on purchase and use. Not to say we didn't take the information in the fee report and look at increases, because, as part of any budget cycle, you look at both revenues and expenditures. But nothing stood out from at least the 3 states we identified. And if there's a state that the legislature would want us to look at, we could do that as well. We were asking JFO, which state should we look at here? And it was really just Renee and I thinking, okay, we're gonna pick these 3. But maybe those weren't the right 3 to pick.
And I'm sure you can look at any of them in terms of, there's a lot of people that have great recommendations for that. I was curious if any had said that perhaps says that I'm surprised this particular state relies on driver's license fees so much higher or different than ours, or we don't rely on fees in certain areas and testing at the level of other spots. So I'm not sure what the process is used at the review level, at the senior level of what we have discussed. Obviously, it didn't make it into the governor's recommend, so it puts you in a spot. But that doesn't mean it wasn't reviewed. So I'm just curious about what those findings might or might not have been, or any other recommendations that were made in those areas that were chosen not to move on. I'm not talking about just an increase, but what balance of approach that might we learn from other places.
Yeah. No, I'm not aware of any, but I do know our executive leadership uses national forums like AASHTO, which I'm not going to get correct on the first try, but American State Transportation Officials, Highway and Officials, something to that effect. Anyway, it's just to say that our executive leadership team puts a lot of stake in the relationships that they have with other leaders of other states. And I just may not have been privy to those conversations.
I guess so for now, on this, would we see an 80-20 out of this big list of the 250? Is it, 80% of the revenue comes out of 20% of the fees? Is that, or is it really even less than that?
Yes.
It comes from 5 or 6 particular places.
I'd say that that's accurate. And Renee has a list of like the top 5.
Top 5 categories?
Yes.
Just a recommendation, this is great, and I appreciate all of the work. Because it's a PDF, it's hard. You can't freeze the, columns and titles. And I don't know if it's possible to have an Excel that you could do that and freeze all the all the,
I'm happy to send the
Excel.
committee the Excel version. JFO also has the Excel version. I was told that Excel cannot be posted online.
okay.
Yeah, but I can send the Excel version to the committee today.
It's a lot of data here. It's just fascinating.
Well, I would ask the committee to think about what do we want the JFO to do with this? And we're also going to move on to hear the other piece, but are there other questions for Candace?
Yeah. Thinking about consolidating, is a lot of this, curious question. The statute that enacts these different, is it all in one spot or is it spread over a bunch of different sections of law?
Most of it is in highways. Give me a second. Yeah. Apologies.
23 VSA, I see 14, 114A. Okay, yeah.
We could definitely see that some are spread out, but I do think most of them.
So in other words, if you're going to, would make a change, you consolidate, you find where to look.
Okay, we have a handful in 19 BSA and then most in 23.
And then the different sections in them and all that type of thing. All right, thanks for thank you for putting up with my curiosity.
Oh, please. No issue.
Thank you.
Yes.
Was there any more? Okay, Candace, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate the work. And it sparks all kinds of questions and certainly rabbit holes or wormholes. What do we call them?
Oh.
Renee Coda, Director of Finance, for the record.
Every time. Welcome back.
Thank you. So I have, I compiled the list that you guys had requested yesterday. Let me share my screen. So the top five, so per the fee report, the top 5 categories are inspection stickers, licenses, permits, plates, and registration. And I broke those down. So $93 million of, and these numbers are for fiscal year 25. So of the revenue generated, $93 million is captured here. Inspection stickers, that was,
Do we have this in our?
Yeah.
no,
No.
I was gonna
I
ask you where's when we sign this.
can send it.
Yeah, that would be good.
So then I broke those categories down into their subcategories, but these are only, what I pulled for this is revenue that is over in those subcategories of $1 million. So there could be other items of less than $1 million.
So if they don't add up, it's because we didn't put every little.
Yes, there's more revenue, but there may be a line that is less than $1 million. So just to give you the top hitters. Yes. Okay. So inspection stickers, 3.3 million. In licenses, the 2 top items are the 4-year license and the operator's license. Of course, we have other licenses, but those are the revenue they bring in is less than $1 million, such as permits and CDL licenses, enhanced licenses. The permits are a high revenue generator. So the IFTA single trip permits, the IRP single trip, and the special maximum gross load permits.
Are those 100% transportation revenue? We have to send part of that off to some federal carrier piece or?
So how IFTA and IRP, not the permits are our permits, but how IFTA and IRP work is that, we get a portion of funds from other states and they get a portion of funds from our state, depending on the miles, that are driven in our state or in other states.
Like Mbapa was saying, it's probably keep the log of it. Yeah, they log it, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Registrations are
Representative Casey has a question for you.
sorry.
Yep, that's all right.
How do you, so you're talking about portion plates, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so how do you just take their word for how many miles they drove out of state? Is that how that works?
No.
What is it?
Most of them have GPS.
Hmm.
And so my audit team audits a subset of the carriers. And they ask for their GPS. And so they look back and they try to come up with the same. But yeah, so most carriers have GPS these days, but some do not. And so they have to log a lot of information.
So there is a system in place for when you go out of state then through. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
So all the registrations that came in at more than $1 million, with the pleasure car being the most at nearly $25 million. And at the 1 year registration, and then of course the 2 year registration being at $19 million. So that's the majority of the $69 million for registrations that is here.
So I guess we should have had to make my note of what the registration fee is and we take it back to how many there are, but would you say then just by looking at that, then more people do go with the 1 year registration than the 2 year registration?
With the S50 report that I do for twice a year, I can see that definitely there are more 1 year registrations than there are 2 year registrations.
Does that trend over time change at all, or have you ever noticed that it's anything different now than it might have been in the past, or any thoughts on?
I haven't been here long enough to see that trend. But I'm looking at that. Okay. So on some of the other topics and questions about why the 20% fee increase doesn't appear to be 20%. So there are some categories where it actually has exceeded the 20%, such as titles. And so titles have, let's see, we have here specific things. So titles, we at the same time for titles we're titling older cars. So the 20% fee increase. So even though it's more than in that category, it's hard to actually see whether or not the 20% fee increase for the original subset of vehicles that we would title, if it was elevated because of us titling older vehicles.
Yeah.
We had an increase for titling older vehicles, so which means we should see a greater than 20% increase. So in the deep dive that I did for the fee report, and I saw the same trends that you all are seeing, my opinion is that the 20% fee increase has offset the impact of eliminating out-of-state vehicle registrations. The decline in Vermont DMV revenue can be attributed to several factors beyond external pressures, like a softening of the new car market. Despite a 20% increase in DMV fees, revenue did not rise proportionally when adjusting for this fee increase, and comparing fiscal year 24 to fiscal year 25 revenues to the actual figures from
fiscal year 23, a clearer picture emerges. Revenue from snowmobiles, motorboats, and ATV dropped by 32, 25, and 9% respectively, resulting in a loss of $208,000 in fiscal year 24 and $591,000 in fiscal year 25. Overall motor vehicle registrations have fallen in the numbers that I was reviewing, had fallen by 3.73%, affecting 75 revenue categories. Though not all have experienced declines, the total reduction amounts to $927,000 in fiscal year 24 and $2.68 million in fiscal year 25. The decline may be due to several factors, including the elimination of lenient standards for out-of-state registrations and the misuse of online temp tags, resulting in non-registration.
Online what tag?
Temporary tags.
Representative Casey and then Representative Powell.
That's the registration, right? It's temporary, talking about a temp.
Yes.
Cause I saw, it was kind of funny when we first came up here this year, I spoke to, sorry, I spoke to a few of us about how I was sitting there in a grocery store when my wife was in there and I was outside with the dogs and this car backs in and I just got looking at his paper plate. It was like really old. And so, and I don't make a habit of doing this, but we had a conversation about it. And so I just was kind of noticing, just going about my day to day. Then I was stopped at the McDonald's down here in Randolph and I happened to pull up behind a vehicle. Huh, there's another one. And I wasn't even looking that hard. So I'm assuming there was some sort of a little flaw there where people were taking advantage of Vermont's generosity. I don't know if I want to use that word, but I'm assuming there was quite a few of them. So it looks like I don't see as many lately. And I do keep looking. I gotta admit I haven't. So I don't know if there's something they tightened up there or whatever, or maybe the numbers will change. I don't know. But I thought that was could have been one of the problems.
I appreciate you looking at this and some of the things, I think anecdotally, we sort of wonder why would the income not go to 20% or whatnot, and sort of say, oh, people aren't getting it registered or whatnot. And you did sort of say that there may be some out-of-state folks who aren't coming to register here. And, that could be due to increased fees, but we also changed some of the legislation around it to not allow that. So, and that makes sense. And then your other, maybe explanation, I don't remember now exactly what it was, but, some of the legislation that's happened with the titles, where we started to say, oh no, more people now have to have titles. So it makes sense that those would go up above the 20%. So, those are good explanations, I think, of why it's not a real clear, boom, 20%, everything's gone up. So, thank you.
Representative Wally. Then Representative Burke.
Renee, thank you for bringing up that out-of-state issue. Can you just remind the committee how the agency tightened that up? Were people, was it during COVID that anyway, could you remind us of the details?
Yes, so we allowed out-of-state registrations. And my understanding isn't because of COVID, it was just, that's what the state of Vermont allowed for some time. And prior to, about the same time as the fee increase, but just prior to, maybe about 6 months prior to, eliminated that option.
Was that for people who had a second home here? Or just,
Yeah.
I live in New Hampshire, but I can register my car in Vermont for whatever reason I decide?
Yes, sir. And companies and individuals were registering in Vermont from all over the country.
Because it was
Cheaper.
cost savings for them?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Or nefarious
Or
legal
Right, was-
activities like no figure.
Yes.
there was multiple reasons that
Okay.
people were doing it.
Okay.
And so that was ended.
Yeah.
And shortly thereafter, with the 20% increase, what happened, the temporary, the W plates that were allowed
those were because of COVID. Because people couldn't get in and get those plates when they were buying cars and everything was shut down. So that's when that was instituted. We did a deep dive on those registration or those VIN numbers associated with the temporary tags. And it appears approximately 2/3 never registered. So we did a comparison between the VIN numbers on the temp tags and the VIN numbers in VT trips. So, thank you. So on that, and we're hearing Representative Casey's recent viewings, and I can share similar stories, but does the DMV have a plan in place to move those temporary registrations to permanent? Like, are DMV officers pulling people over with temporary registration, paper registrations? And can you remind me what a temporary registration is legally? Like, what is the time limit that you are allowed to have that before you have to go to a permanent registration? It's a 60-day plate. The expectation is that they would apply for a permanent registration within 15 days. So that 60-day plate allows for the time. And the October 31st was the last day of 2025 that we allowed new temporary plates. So January 1st, they are all past their 60 days if there's any vehicles currently. We are working with the VT Trips system on a process to at the time of that, potentially this is one option, but they're looking at different options surrounding those, whether to repeal the temporary plates and not allow them and just have everyone, or to use the system and require the registration fee, purchase and use, everything at the time of getting their temporary plate. So we're working on the options. So right now, any temporary paper plates we are seeing out there are technically illegal because January 1st is long gone. And so do we have heightened enforcement of that right now? I can't answer that question, but I can get that question. I can get that answer for you. Okay, thank you. Seems like it would be a good idea.
It's represent, I thought it was Representative Burke, I don't have a bird or
Yeah.
and then Representative Lau.
Just one comment and then a question that, we used to register the cars in Vermont for, fire insurance. Long time ago. And question I have is, so it's great that you did this work. It's amazing. But so now are you going to look at what could be, what kind of money could we be getting from fees that really outdated? In terms of inflation or in relation to what they are.
So that's not something that I am
Right.
doing.
You just collected.
I'm just collecting the data.
I mean, it just seems like there might be financial opportunity to get some more money.
So one thing that in this deep dive during the fee report, my team, I said, everybody, if there's anything that someone on the counters has seen or that, to bring forth. And one of the things that we found was the inspection stickers, that we did not raise the inspection stickers on January of 24. So we realized that this past summer of 25 and raised that from the $6 to the $8 on November 1st. So we did have a loss of revenue because of that. Let's see. In fiscal year 24, we had a loss of revenue of $500,000. in fiscal year 25, it was $975,000. And in 26, it was $351,000. But we fixed it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand what is your sense of the scope, the problem, the scale of the problem with these temporary tags? I'm just, I see them around too, and, some of them are very, look like they've been on a car for a very long time. So what is the sense, of the scale of the problem? And what might that represent in, money on the table? And then the other thing is, it's my understanding that these would be issued by, we can track this, right? This would be issued by, by us, right? For whatever point of purchase reason. So is there a way to just, like spit out kind of a different categories of the numbers in each category, and so we can have a sense for.
So the information, yes, the information we have on the temp tags is VIN numbers and names and addresses. Some of those VIN numbers, some of the names, I mean, the people that applied for the temp tags, some of them then reapplied for temp tags with a different person in the household. It appears that maybe some of those VIN numbers were changed by one digit and reapplied for the temp tags again. So they're not necessarily all, there's about 155,000 temp tags issued from the inception, and 2/3 never registered. It's very difficult to know what the value of those vehicles are. What we lost was registration fees. We lost purchase and use tax. The purchase and use tax may not have been very much, but that's an assumption that the vehicles were not valued for very much. The clean air fee, the title. So yes, it is the 155,000 different vehicles? I don't think so. So it's very difficult to put a true value on the loss of revenue.
So these are tracked by the VIN number, and you were saying that somebody may have altered the VIN number and then re-registered. So how does that?
They didn't register. I asked for another
temp
temp.
tag. So how is that something we can understand that might have been hard to catch under our old system? Is that something that with our fancy computerized modern system that we can catch somebody gaming the system that way?
That was not in VT trips. So the temp tags are not in VT trips. So if we allow them in the future, which, options working on, they would be based out of VT trips.
Why would we hesitate to put them in VT trips if this is a potentially significant pot of money that we're leaving behind?
Right now, they have to register. So except for the vehicles that still have an old temp tag, they have to come in and register.
Yeah, that's just kind of capturing
We're
it, sort of
we're
feral
capturing it now.
population.
Yes, we began capturing it at rollout. At rollout, I was at locations to help support the days after rollout, that end of week. And I saw anecdotally people coming in, asking about the temp tags, and then leaving with plates.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so now you just get hard, like they have them at every DMV, and when you register and pay your purchase and use, you get the tags. And does the temporary ones, when they were allowed, or now for a while they weren't, but they're still in use, does that impact how you get your vehicle inspected? Could you get inspected with a temp tag?
I don't know the answer to that. Yes,
But right now, there are no temp tags.
correct.
However, right, that is working on an emergency order and decision by the commissioner and not under statute. We should perhaps consider whether we are or not going to bring in language that the DMV and our ledge council are working on to put into the bill about making this a permanent or not, the statute, or put in the bill that, because they're gonna have to do, my understanding, and I think we're gonna hear more about this, but it's on emergency order. It can't go forever. It can only work while he's developing, while we're developing, i.e. I agree with Commissioner Collier, but the team is developing the process to adjust or change it, but they're going to need a statutory change at some point potentially. That's my understanding. So that is being considered, that we should be adding that to this miscellaneous motor vehicle that we are working on. So I don't think we're totally done with this subject, or maybe, but sounds things we probably shouldn't be done with it, but make sure we're clear on that. That's something that we may want to have in the bill. I think Representative McCoy, where did we get to your?
You answered the question. I was wondering if they're getting rail plates now.
Yes.
Yes.
Representative Casey?
Is now that there's been a change, is it too early to tell on the trend as far as the registrations that are coming in now? Is there a way of telling the difference or something? Is it trending in the right direction at all? Is it too early? I guess I'm lost for words here, but
I would be more comfortable with more data
yeah, okay.
to see trends.
Yeah.
On inspection stickers, I pulled the trends for those since November, since we increased the amount. And what I saw with those over the last 5 months is that, yes, we have an increase of revenue, but we have a decrease every month of several thousand inspections. So the increase of the 20% increase implemented in November, we are not seeing a 20% increase in revenue.
Well, you had put up a piece there that said that the revenue was 3.3 million for inspections, but we say we have 500, I hear the number anyway, we have between 550 and 600,000 registered vehicles in Vermont. And for me, let's just say it's 500,000 times 8 is $4 million. It's inspections required every year. We should be at $4 million, maybe a little short of that when, there's some level of not compliance, or they're no longer driving it, and whatnot. But
That's not the case. That is not the case.
we're not even close. Now, if I added back the numbers in the $2, might make up some of that. I'm not sure this is a fair question to you, but maybe it needs to be directed to the commissioner. But what are we doing about that? Is what I've heard from a couple of other spots. What are we doing about that? And what is the analysis on that? And is it just plain not performing the inspection, or is there some other factors at play that we don't want to jump to that conclusion that it's just people not bothering to get their inspection done? And are there other factors? And is that an unfair question to you, or is that one that we need to bring the commissioner in to answer?
I mean, anecdotally, I know that there are some people that do not get an inspection because their vehicle cannot be inspected. They have a little rust on there.
But the
Yes.
DMV is not taking a position on our answer. You're not answering.
So, yes, I can't answer that question. I do know that we are looking at, we are looking at changing some of the rules, requirements around an inspection, the ones that are too strict, and they don't need to be too strict. So that is being looked at right now.
We're hoping to hear the details of that, I think, on Thursday's testimony. I think it is. My agenda, but I think we're expecting one of your colleagues in to hear more about what the actual recommendations are and review of the requirements. So what about, I guess, what do you see on
driver's licenses, registrations, or is that, we're gonna ask you to come back again? I don't know if you had gotten to those things or that. We're gonna have you come back again as you had mentioned, starting to look at some trends. We give you a chance to come back and talk about some of those.
So I have a little, something that I wrote up on commercial driver's licenses. So the CDLs have decreased by 28% since 2023, leading to a revenue reduction of $97,000. So it's not huge. In fiscal year 24 and 172,900 in fiscal year 25. And additionally, Class D licenses have declined by 9.8%. With it, that's a $693,000 revenue loss in 25. And that's due to declining enrollment. I don't know why. But yes.
Representative Pouch?
Yeah, just a question on the inspection, went from $6 to $8. That's what the person who's doing the inspecting pays for the tags, right?
That's what we receive for each inspection.
Yeah. And you probably don't have it, but it'd be interesting to see what, so the rest of the inspection fee goes to whoever's doing the inspection, and those fees can vary.
Yes.
Depending on sometimes no charge for a dealer, maybe to, I don't know, $75 or $100, I guess. So that goes to whoever's doing the inspection. I'd be curious to see if there's any other income coming from inspections other than just that $8 per tag, and what it costs to run the inspection program from the DMV standpoint, to see if it actually pays for itself.
I don't know the answer to that question.
It just.
But you do
interesting
have,
to see.
you do have the fee for the AVIT system too, on top of the sticker fee. So there's.
All that the inspectors pay
Pay
to
for the
participate
tablet.
in that.
Yeah.
But still.
But yeah, I get your point, but there
Yeah.
is another. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna go through a big, there's this big effort to rewrite the manual and all of that, and that costs money. Be interesting to see what it costs to run the inspection program versus what we get for doing it.
Okay, Representative?
Did you say that you're seeing a 20% reduction in CDL licenses?
28.4.
And that's like 2025, 2026, or
2020,
2025?
so it's compared to 2023.
That seems excessive, doesn't it? Or is that normal?
I don't know.
With that kind of drop, I mean, I don't know what the 5-year average is, or if you're looking at the 5-year to get a sense of, but especially when you see your, revenues or activity go down by that amount, it seems to be a red flag. I'm just curious.
So in the fee report, on the vision tab, the CDL licenses is its own revenue category, and you can see fiscal year 21 through fiscal year 25.
I mean, I guess my point is when you're seeing those kinds of, that sound like pretty significant drops, does your department, and I would assume the answer is yes, because of this new, the new software system that the DMV has put into place, which seems to give you a lot more capability than in the past. But would you be able to send an email to all the CDL registrants that have not re-registered, just to kind of get some type of information? I guess anytime you see some type of significant change, seems to me you want to ask, what's happening here?
I don't know the answer to that question. I could ask our operations director.
Representative Casey?
Is law enforcement can come back in and talk to us sometime? Oh, it was appropriate to ask, I don't remember.
You good?
we can have a committee discussion about what we want to do next. But right now, they're not. We have had DMV commercial enforcement in several times. We haven't had Department of Public Safety in this year.
Well, the registration deal that's going on, the inspection thing. I'd kind of like to know how much of the effort or an interest they have in helping us out with this. I think DMV is doing something about it, but somebody needs to force it. I just don't know.
I guess for as far as the process goes, for now, witness, we're gonna direct our questions, what else we might want to know, and whether she can answer them or not. At least we can identify them, and then I think, given our time frame, I would be certainly okay with coming back after a short break to have committee discussions about what we may or may want to do as we spend our last couple of weeks on this motor vehicle bill, whether that does or does not relate to the bill or overall process. So, but
Well, I apologize for that, the way it was asked.
I don't think you're saying anything that other people aren't thinking. I think we just got to do it in the right format. But so we get questions this way, but I.
Something for the answer.
I can't.
That's why I did it.
Did I?
You're welcome.
Nice. Representative Keyser?
Just the data is muddled, as you said. 4-year license renewals in 21 were 261,000. And then 4 years later, which was 25, and by the way, that was the lowest one, but then it's muddled because we had an increase in 23. And so you'd have to go after what numbers? Is that what you did as far as in other words, actual number of applicants?
No.
Or just a volume of
I
dollars?
did the dollars.
Okay,
And
so
I did
really,
it,
yeah,
I adjusted to the 20% increase.
yeah.
So I have a,
Do you have numbers for the cardinal number of applications?
I do not.
Okay. So you really can't tell if anybody dropped off or not.
So in my review, in that spreadsheet, this very
Yes.
detailed spreadsheet, as I was trying to determine whether or not what the 20% increase, I removed the 20% increase.
Gotcha.
So I could compare apples to apples. And that's where I saw the reduction. So when I say it's a reduction of the 3.78,
Yeah.
the 3.73% for registrations, that was by making all the numbers the same. So by removing the 20% increase and then comparing 23 to 24 and 25.
Yeah.
And since fiscal year 24 was a half a year, I had to adjust that half a year.
Okay.
Is there any other questions? I'm asking the department to give us sort of the top 10 fees and the directions that Renee had shown us here today. And if there's some way, whether it's a 5-year trend they can show or a 10-year, depending on how difficult it is to, I'm not looking to make it hugely onerous tax, but we are looking for the top 10 generating fees over the last 10 years or some number that's relevant, like I think the totals that you showed out of those 5 or so fees, whatever it was, or
5 categories.
5 categories. Maybe we really want to be at the category level, but that was 93 million. I mean, the DMV fees are 110 million, so we're getting most of it in those. We don't need to go hugely deeper, I wouldn't think, but we're certainly looking for that kind of graph over the 5-year or a 10-year period to see where they've been. And then I think we're probably looking to engage in a conversation at some level is what people think about why that is, and then what we should or shouldn't be, or is being done about it, or what more maybe needs to be done about it, if anything. There's not a guarantee that we need to do something, but what that might be. So I know that's the direction that have been sort of talking about and moving towards. I'm not sure if the committee has any other thoughts that way, but that's what I want you guys to think about. And barring without other questions, I did have one more. When you had read a statement about, or you read the kind of sort of, these are the fees that are down, or these are, when you send that chart over, is that part of what you can send, or is that, should I go back to the tape to hear that again? I don't know if you're,
Yes, I can send that.
I don't mind, I can go back if I have.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Okay, well, I really appreciate, Renee and Kim, thank you for both for coming in this morning and having this conversation, and we are adjourned. We'll be back at 20 up for committee discussion.